Buying media time your opponents can't afford is certainly one way to monopolize the public debate. But it's not the only way to use free speech to advance and protect your interests. Some corporations don't just buy media time. They buy the media.
It's a media-opoly, a media-opoly. The whole media is controlled by a few corporations thanks to deregulation by the FCC.
This was a satire from Saturday Night Live.
They own networks from CBS to CNBC.
They can use them to say whatever they please and put down the opinions of anyone who disagrees.
Was it a vision inspired by paranoia or a cogent look at the future of free speech?
When it is the media itself that decides not only what advertisements to take that are political in nature, but what free information to provide the public called news, and we've then deregulated, allowed them to own more within their industries. We've let loose a giant here.
Gene Kimmelman, co-chairman of Consumers Union in Washington, D.C., has tracked the growing impact of media conglomeration on public policy.
It is dangerous in an open, free society like ours because we rely on the media so much for public discourse, for the expression of democratic values.
Well, what does it matter that Disney owns ABC or that General Electric owns NBC? What does it matter to us?
The danger is not just when it's Disney, GE, it's when there are very few companies that control the most popular media outlets, and there's a policy issue that comes up that could hurt them financially. It is very unlikely we're going to get a full airing of that kind of an issue.
Case in point, the 1996 Telecommunications Act. In February of that year, industry leaders from phone to cable to satellite to broadcast gathered alongside government officials to celebrate a revolutionary revision of America's communications law.
This was a love fest. This was the president and the vice president getting together with the speaker and the majority leader and the leaders of the committees that had moved this legislation. After all, this was historic. This was the major overhaul of telecommunications policy, first time in 60 years, since 1934.
Today, with the stroke of a pen, our laws will catch up with our future.
There was talk of millions of jobs, tremendous GNP growth, competition, choice for consumers, new services never dreamt of, lower prices. It was a panacea.
This bill is an indication of what can be done when Republicans and Democrats work together in a spirit of genuine cooperation to advance.
What the president didn't say was that the bill's real beneficiaries included the media giants themselves, who had lobbied long and hard for the bill's passage.
Here you have the broadcast industry actively working to transform television.
Jeff Chester runs the Center for Media Education in Washington, D.C.
Television's going to change. Consumers are going to have to buy a new TV set. There are going to be many, many more channels. The rules that determine how accountable local broadcasters are to their community are being weakened. Station license periods are being extended. In essence, the Telecommunications Act was like giving the broadcasters a blank check with television. Do with it what you want.
One thing television broadcasters wanted and got was the lifting of restrictions on the number of stations one company could own. But it was another provision, buried deep within the Act, that stood to make them billions: the free use of something called the digital spectrum.
The average American does not know what digital spectrum is. They just don't know. Nor, frankly, should they have to know. They're working and being with their families, etc. But here in Washington, their assets that they own were being given away.
Again, let me thank you from the bottom of my heart, every one of you, for making this great day for America possible. Thank you.
What was being given away amounted to a set of new channels over which it's possible to bring us a much better high-definition picture. But broadcasters see in these new channels something more: marketing opportunities never before imaginable over the publicly owned airwaves.
Having a piece of the digital spectrum is like having the keys to Fort Knox. Digital technology will allow broadcasters to take the one channel that they have right now and turn it into 5, 10, even 20 or more channels. Digital technology will allow broadcasters to create interactive channels, which allow you to click on a commercial, to buy a product. They want to take that piece of free spectrum, chop it up into a lot of little channels, and make piles of money from this valuable resource.
Now, since we as the people own it, you might ask, why aren't we selling it to the broadcasters and using that money for all sorts of social goods? Well, that's a whole other question, and it might speak to the lobbying power of the broadcast industry.
These people that bring us the news, that objectively cover the news, are out there trying to influence Congress and Washington as much as anybody.
Like the other telecom industries, broadcasters had been pouring millions into campaign contributions to Congress. But that wasn't all they were doing.
The broadcasters had hundreds of lobbyists spread all over the Hill for a couple years leading up to that period. But the reason they're so powerful is they don't just give a lot of money out, and they just don't have a phalanx of lobbyists smothering Capitol Hill with their positions. But they have one advantage that no one else has. They control the fate of all politicians.
Let me tell you how they do that. There's an issue before the Congress which affects their industry. Call in the station managers from the congressman's district or the senator's state. They all come to Washington. They sit down in a room with a senator or representative. Now, there's never any threats made. There's never any statement that if you don't do this, we're going to say bad things about you in our newscast. But they are the messengers. They are the messengers. They portray you and your work here in Washington to the people of your state or district. That's incredibly powerful.
In the language of the bill that we will be considering,
John McCain was one of the few senators who opposed the giveaway of the digital spectrum. Another was Senate Majority Leader Bob Dole.
Now let me get this straight. America lends the broadcasters a national resource so they can increase their profit margins, but they don't think it's fair to pay rent.
But Dole and McCain were lonely voices.
I heard and saw many other members of Congress who said, look, this is good for America. All Americans are going to get a much better picture on their TV set. Things are going to be great. And I agree with all that. But why should a profit-making corporation get that asset for free and not have to pay for it?
Mr. President, when something is owned by the taxpayer and is of great value, and we have a way of taking that very valuable commodity that's owned by the taxpayers and auctioning it off.
The digital spectrum could bring the public up to $70 billion at auction, but the broadcasters didn't want an auction. Basically, they wanted the spectrum for free.
If we'd said, look, we've got $10 billion worth of public land out there in the West, and we're going to give it to various corporations in America for them to use. And they're going to give us back some other land which really isn't nearly as good in exchange for that. The American people would never stood for such a thing, ever.
From ABC News.
It had all the makings of a major news story. Were powerful corporations picking the pocket of the taxpayer? It's the very kind of thing that broadcast journalism often investigates. After all, TV news loves a scandal.
We have on NBC, what is it called? The fleecing of America. Where were they when their own networks and other TV stations were in fact lobbying and getting what they wanted out of the Telecommunications Act?
The provision of news is
Dean Alger is author of the book Mega Media, a study of corporations and mass media. He examined the coverage of the Telecom Act on the 3 nightly network news broadcasts from the beginning of the Senate debate till the night before the bill was passed.
The Telecommunications Act was introduced roughly in May 1995 and was finally passed in early February 1996. During that 9 months, the 3 network news shows, NBC, ABC, CBS, aired a sum total of only 19 minutes on this Telecommunications Act.
None of that 19 minutes included a single mention of the debate over whether broadcasters should pay for use of the digital spectrum.
If 5 senators took a legitimate trip somewhere overseas to investigate something that might be costing the American people money, that'd be reported on the evening news as a junket, costing thousands and thousands of dollars. And that would be news. And maybe it is news. Maybe it should be reported. But when it comes to a $1 billion giveaway to them, mum's the word.
You will not see this story on any television or hear it on any radio broadcast because it directly affects them.
You said from the Senate floor, we will not see this story on any television or hear it on any radio broadcast because it directly affects them. And did you hear anything on?
No, I never heard. I saw a few print stories about it, but never did I see a television program. Later on, there was one, I believe, on CBS, but the coverage, as compared with what any other story of this magnitude would have gotten, was minuscule.
The media did not want to discuss what it was doing. It would be like a bank robber stopping the bank robbery and saying, look at what we're doing here. Let's have a press conference in front of the bank while we're doing it. I mean, ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, everyone, who wanted to discuss this? They're all going to make hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars over the next several years. The last thing they want to do is have a discussion.
I do think we should resolve this spectrum issue before the bill is considered.
Dole finally agreed to support the Telecom Act in exchange for a promise that an auction might still be possible. In the months following, broadcast news paid scant attention to the issue. Meanwhile, the broadcast lobby sprang into action.
Air is a wonderful thing.
With issue advertising.
Kids use it, we all breathe it, and it's free. We use the air too. We're your local.
Ads like this were careful not to mention the spectrum auction. Instead, they claimed Congress was planning to tax viewers.
Now Congress has a new idea. They tax everything else. Why not the airwaves? You'll have to pay more to watch your favorite shows, and we could lose them altogether. Call toll-free and tell Congress not to tax the airwaves. Tell them.
In the spring, Congress quietly gave the broadcasters what they wanted. There would be no auction.
They got $70 billion worth of free airwaves. The then head of the Federal Communications Commission called it the biggest corporate giveaway this century. So this industry has been dumping obscene amounts of money, tens of millions of dollars, into the process around the time of this key legislation. And we've had no public discussion about it. The public can't get upset about it because they don't know about it. Because these guys control the airwaves, they have quote-unquote free speech. They're protecting our First Amendment rights. I feel much better when I go to bed at night knowing that.
I do a lot of interviews on consumer issues. I have news crews coming in all the time to talk about a variety of issues, and they always ask, what aren't we covering? What else could we cover? And I always say, you know, there's one very important issue out there. There's enough money involved in this issue that you could probably provide health insurance for everyone in this country who doesn't have it. Or you could provide a major tax cut to the middle class and low-income people. The broadcasters then always show interest. What is the issue? I mean, that much money on the table, there's that much, this is such a big issue, what is it? And I say, it's if we just charge fair market value for the spectrum broadcast companies receive for free from the public. Usually there's silence, maybe a grin. Most say, oh, come on, there's no way we're ever going to get to do that kind of a segment.
Are you suggesting some deep, dark, mysterious conspiracy at work here?
Absolutely not. You don't need to cook up some dark, deep conspiracy. This is an age-old phenomenon of willful people wanting to acquire wealth and power, whether the power is formal governmental power or, in this case, building enormous empires.
It's not easy to get on the air criticizing the media giants. On stories affecting their interest, no news is good news.
Jim Hightower had a syndicated radio show on ABC.
Jim Hightower on a Saturday.
The Disney deal came down to buy Cap City's ABC, and Hightower challenged it, said it was Mickey Mouse.
Jim, I've got news for you.
Who is this?
Well, this is your new boss. I'm the chairman of the board.
Mickey Mouse?
That's right.
And then he challenged the whole Telecommunications Act and said this is not good for the public.
Now, bear in mind, we're not talking about monopoly here over toasters. We're talking about monopoly over your access to news and information. And it's information that you and I need if we are going to have a democracy in this country.
Well, he was off the air fairly quickly. Now, ABC said they didn't like the ratings at that point in time. The program just wasn't successful. Now, that may be true. The problem for the public is we'll never know.
We're threatened here not just as consumers, but as citizens. It's our democracy that's at stake.
Now, you might say to yourself, well, the media have never reported on their owners or on their behind-the-scenes dealings. And you'd be right. There was no golden age of self-scrutiny by the press lords. What's different today is that never before have so much media been controlled by so few owners. For example, whether you're watching ABC News, a History Channel documentary, sports on ESPN, a Lifetime movie, or commentary on E, you're watching Disney. And that's just scratching the surface. Disney brings you information via newspapers, magazines, radio stations, local TV stations, and of course, movies. If you watch Fox News, the FX channel, or the Family Channel, you're watching a tiny fraction of Rupert Murdoch's powerful News Corporation. A global media empire controlling newspapers, book publishers, regional sports networks, even the satellites capable of delivering programming to 75% of the world.
U.S. and NATO officials feared...
When you watch CBS News, the national network, or listen to any one of more than 170 radio stations, including several in the same cities, you're hearing from CBS Inc. And just consider this. Not only do these corporations have more media outlets to protect and promote their interests, they've never had so many different interests to promote and protect. Just take one example.
The ultimate industrial media conglomerate is General Electric, that controls NBC and MSNBC and CNBC, etc. What is General Electric involved in besides media? Well, in fact, they're in everything from jet engines to abrasives to nuclear and other electrical generating systems, hotels, insurance and finance. When NBC reporters come upon some issue involved in those industrial areas, are they going to think twice about what they cover? There's a built-in profound conflict of interest.
It means that you're not going to be investigating certain subjects. It means that you're not going to see NBC investigating General Electric. You're not going to have ABC doing a big, lengthy investigation about Disney.
I heard Michael Eisner, head of Disney, on National Public Radio say, I don't want ABC News covering Disney. I don't want Disney covering Disney.
If ABC doesn't cover Disney, maybe for some good reasons, we may not have enough other people to cover Disney.
This very exclusive club has developed that determines, what we see on TV. This club goes to Congress and gets whatever they want for the most part in terms of access to the media system, but we're all left out of the picture.
This is a tremendous danger for our society because if it's the car business and there is mergers and consolidation, we fear higher prices, less choice, concentration of ownership, and we try to monitor. But if we make a mistake, you can break it up, challenge it. The facts are out there to the public. If it's a media company merging with another major media company, once it has occurred, who is going to take it on?
And what about that Saturday Night Live satire on NBC that did take on the media giants? Well, it ran only once on a live broadcast. Then it mysteriously disappeared from the show during reruns. The executive producer said, quote, I don't think it worked comedically. You have said that money and speech is the issue of the 21st century. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean the relationship between money and speech. I mean whether people who have the money are going to so dominate the ability to express their opinions that people who don't have the money are going to be turned into listeners, not speakers. I'm not satisfied with that. I'm not satisfied with a two-tier First Amendment that says a relatively small slice of the world gets to decide what gets said, and all the rest of us sit like groundlings in the audience and grunt about whether we like it or not. Because that's what we're going to, unless we can find a way to increase the ability of people without large amounts of money to either get access to the media, to get access to the political process, to in some way break through the huge screen that money creates these days so that they can get their voices heard as well. The First Amendment is aspirational. It's romantic. It says that the purpose is to create a world in which people can speak freely and equally to one another. And therefore, there's an obligation to step in at some point and even the playing field so that individuals can actually have real discussions and real debates. Because what we've now got is not a real democracy with real debate, but we've got a plutocracy in which money talks.